This week's episode of Timeless Lessons sponsored for Daily Giving. Great organization that gives really thousands of dollars away every single day to a whole variety of great other organizations. Everything goes right to the organizations, and here's how it works. You give them the money and they give it out for you every single day. Every day, someone's giving money on your behalf. I love it. Wherever I am, I know no matter what happens, a little bit of money is given on my behalf every day, and it's a great organization. Check it out, dailygiving.org. We're in a very interesting, wonderful, amazing period of time. This is the beginning of high holiday season. Times where we have to make decisions, times where we start the process of slowing down and focusing on what's important. One sort of beautiful idea, the whole goal of the high holidays is to understand who you are. God doesn't judge you because he has some kind of like testing system up in heaven. He's trying to get us to be more us. I want to share with you a story that I just saw this week. It really touched me. Got it from my friend Phil. Story of a man named Eddie Jacobson. You may know this story, but it's so awesome. Eddie Jacobson grew up in Kansas City. His parents ran a little store, didn't have a lot of money. And every day, in the middle of the day, he would go to the bank with whatever little cash that they made in the store. And he would give it to the bank teller, a guy who he started to create a relationship with, a really nice guy that they started to hit it off with. The guy's name was Harry Truman. Harry Truman and Eddie started to become friends. And one day they decided they were going to go into business together. They opened up their own store. And things were going great until the market turned and the company filed for bankruptcy. Now, so usually when this happens, you have the sparring of the parties and different partners, but not in this case. They stayed really close, but they went their separate ways. Harry Truman, as you may or may not realize, got into politics. And Eddie kept in business. He was a salesman, traveled a ton. And time went on. And in the 1940s, the state of Israel was struggling for recognition. And there was no one in the world that gave them anything. Israel didn't show up into the embrace of an international community. And in America, they understood that if the United States would recognize them, it would change everything, would lead ultimately to an accepted state. And so they started to lobby Harry Truman to recognize and to support the state of Israel, but he was uninterested. And the people that were coming to see him got to a point where he said, enough is enough. I want to meet nobody on the Palestine issue. Back then, that's what it was called. And it looked like everything was grim. One night in the middle of the night, the phone call comes into the Jacobson home. And they said how important the situation was that Dr. Chaim Weizmann, the president of Israel, was in town, and the president, Harry Truman, wouldn't even see him. Can you do something? And Jacobson got up and said, you better believe I can. Flew to Washington. He got in to see his old friend, Harry Truman. And Harry Truman said, if you came to me to speak about the Palestine issue, I'm out. I'm not talking about it. And Ed Truman said, if you told me to meet your hero, wouldn't I? He goes, yeah, you would. He goes, well, my hero is here. His name is Dr. Weitzman. He flew all the way in to meet you. You can't meet my hero? And Harry Truman famously turned around to look at his window to the rose garden, looked out the window for a few minutes, turned around and goes, fine, I'll meet him. And that meeting was historic because after the hours that they spent together, Harry Truman came out and understood the plight of the Jews in Israel at the time, and understood how hard it was for them to exist in the world, and understood the power of the United States to back them, and against the best wishes of his own State Department, Harry Truman supported and recognized Israel at a time when they needed it most, the launch of the state itself in 1948. And Eddie Jacobson, the salesman, ended up becoming the de facto ambassador. I heard that story and it struck me because Eddie Jacobson had to take a stand for what he believed in. In many ways, that's life. We got to figure out what we believe in. We got to take a stand. We got to do something. You know, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is not the time where we hide from God. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is the time in which we approach God. God doesn't judge us to hurt us. He puts us through a period of time where he says to us, I believe in you. You're a big people. You have so much potential. But if you don't stop and look around, you're going to allow life to race past you. If you don't pick up your head, weeks will turn into months and turn into years, and all you'll be doing is surviving. I don't want you to just survive. You have too much. I want you to stand for something. I want you to have a legacy that matters. I want you to do things that are challenging and difficult because there's a world you have to fix. That's the challenge of this period of time. To introspect, to prepare ourselves to stand before the King. One of the greatest opportunities we can have, to stand before the King and tell him, I want to be bigger. I want to take a stand for the things I believe in. I want my legacy to be something that is greater than the day-to-day existence. Every one of us has an Eddie Jacobson moment, maybe 100 of them. We've got to come out of our comfort zone and do the thing for what we believe in. And you never know. One action could have such incredible ripple effects. When we go into this period of time with that level of desire to make a difference, we stand before God and we ask him to be a part, to help us, to be a part of our lives in a way that we didn't have before. We ask so that every one of us takes out our own little Eddie Jacobson and makes that call or does that thing or goes past themselves to become the person that we really deep down are meant to be.